Welcome back to Shannons Club TV, where we examine the road and race histories of significant cars in Australia. Join us as we uncover what made our feature car a standout and we take an up-close look at an owner's example.
We'll also get some valuable tips from the Shannons auctions team. In today's episode, the German six-cylinder thoroughbred with a unique blend of luxury and performance, the BMW New Six.
True confession time. Like any car-crazed Aussie adolescent, I was hooked on Falcon GTs and Monaros. But by the time I was 23, no other car occupied my imagination like a 1971 BMW 2800 sedan, red, manual. One of the cover lines for the November 1971 edition of Wheels magazine reads, "We pick world's best sedan." Editor Peter Robinson and a young journalist called Steve Cropley took a Jaguar XJ6 and the newly launched BMW 2800 from Sydney to Melbourne down the Hume, ran performance figures on a private test trip and then returned via the Prince's Highway. The verdict? Robbo chose the Jaguar while Cropley opted for the BM. Interestingly, decades later, Cropley reckoned he had got it wrong and the Jaguar was the superior car. As for me, given the choice between equivalent condition 1971 specimens, I'd choose the BMW in the twinkling of an eye. Mark, in my obsession with this car, I saw the E3 as a prospective Bathurst victor. But it turned out really only to be a class contender, didn't it?
Yeah, well, with that engine capacity, that put it into the under 3 litre touring car class, which you might remember in the 1970s was highly competitive when this car was on sale. You know, we've discussed how advanced it was in terms of its suspension, its engine, its braking, but its biggest handicap for racing was excessive weight, which I'll expand on a bit later on.
In late 1968, the Bayerischen Motor and Werke, on a roll, after the success of its 1961 Neue Klasse 1500 sedan and giant-killing two-door 2002, introduced a pair of New Six luxury models. Identical in appearance, but with different capacity engines and some variations in equipment. The new dual carburettor, straight, single overhead camshaft 6-cylinder engines were so closely related to the existing fours that they shared their overhead camshaft gear, front-end chain drive, combustion chamber shapes, pistons, valve gear and more. They used the same semi-trailing arm independent rear suspension mounted on a separate rear subframe. The volume selling model was the 150 horsepower 2500. The flagship 2800 had 170 horsepower, a limited slip differential, self-levelling struts, heated rear window and headrests. BMW's plan was to redefine sports luxury. These elegant cigar-shaped sedans had a unique athletic austerity with none of a Jaguar's extravagance. Later, the 3.0S and sublime 4-speed only 3.0 SI on Chromadora alloys followed. And as if the sedans weren't sufficiently appealing, how about the drop-dead gorgeous E9 coupes? And Mark, at least in Europe, the E9 was a familiar sight on racetracks, wasn't it?
Yeah, it sure was, and it was raced by some pretty well-known Australians. Australian touring car greats Alan Moffat and Peter Brock are best remembered as arch rivals in Fords and Holdens in the 1970s. However, during that time they also ventured overseas to prove their skills against the world's best, and both were behind the wheel of BMW's legendary 3.0 CSL. The L in CSL stood for lightweight. It was the definitive racing version of BMW's handsome E9 CS 6-cylinder coupe. With its much lighter wind tunnel tuned bodywork and close to 400 brake horsepower from its fuel-injected 3.5 litre engine, the Batmobile, as it was known, dominated European touring car racing during the 1970s and also proved highly competitive in the US. It was there that Moffat was chosen by BMW to co-drive a Works 3-litre CSL in the 1975 Sebring 12-hour. he played a decisive role in a crucial victory over Porsche, earning him high praise from BMW and international acclaim. A year later, Brock entered his own 3-litre CSL in the Le Mans 24-hour race. Although the low-budget Aussie campaign only lasted 18 hours due to engine failure, Brock greatly impressed with his world-class driving skills and competitive pace. John, we should also mention here another famous Aussie, Brian Yogi Muir, was racing over there at the time, and he came second in the 1973 European Touring Car Championship. So, you know, a lot of Australians raced this car, and a lot of Aussies drove it. I mean, you owned one yourself, your E3 sedan. You talk about it a lot. Where does that sit in your pecking order of cars you've owned?
Well, it's interesting. I hadn't been all that long as a motoring journalist when I bought this car, and I was driving new cars all the time, and my partner at that time had, for example, an almost new Commodore wagon, and there was no comparison between the two cars. The BMW was so much better. About the only car I drove that was new that I thought was better was a Series 3 XJ. But hey, that was 10 years more development. If you go back to 1973 and compare the 3.0S with the XJ6 of 1973, to me, the BMW is a no-brainer.
What I find extraordinary about that is you said even driving it 10 years after it was built. You know, for you, it was still like the benchmark in terms of ride quality, handling and what have you.
Ride quality, build quality, performance, equipment, finish. Yes, it was a sublime motor car. I really loved it.
Yeah, fantastic, isn't it? Although the sleek E9 Coupe was only sold in minuscule numbers in Australia, its E3 sedan stablemate did grace local BMW showrooms in numbers that made it eligible for 3-litre touring car racing. Although more sophisticated than the class leaders, Ford's Capri V6 and Mazda's RX-3, the big Beamer could not overcome its major handicap, a much higher curb weight that gave its opposition a massive 300 kilogram free kick. Even so, several E3 sedans did compete, which included 5 Bathurst 1000 appearances between 1974 and 1979. The best result came in 1977, when Phil McDonnell and Jim Hunter claimed a fine 3rd place in class, driving a well-prepared 3.0 SI. Although BMW could not offer a lighter variant of the E3 sedan, its touring car activity paved the way for the magnificent 635 CSI, which debuted in 1981 and wrote its own exciting chapter in the colourful racing history of 6-cylinder BMW. Remember to join the Shannons Club, where you can connect with other enthusiasts around the country.
My name's Jimmy. This is my BMW 1974 3-litre SI. I've owned the car since 1992. It was a single owner car. A gentleman in Werribee bought it new, and I'm the second owner. Drove it for a brief period and then decided to take it off the road and restore it because of its condition. Paintwork was sort of sun-beaten. Good, clean, original example though. Rust-wise, very minimal, if not any. It's an original spec car. The colour combination, Reuben Rot metallic with the grey interior. The car's had a full restoration. I did it in stages, cosmetically, body, interior, full mechanics, suspension, the whole lot, basically from bumper to bumper. BMW just give you that sort of feeling that you're just driving something nice. It's just got an appealing factor about it. You just cruise along the highway and enjoy the car for what it is. Fantastic to drive, super quick for their time. Back in this day, it was a supercar. They're very mechanical, they have a great feel about them. Solid, performs, it's quiet, nimble as well. Doesn't have air conditioning and a few other modern features that you do in new cars today, but when you do drive it, it's a blast. I have a great time. When you see the cars on the road, they've always been very striking. I think the journey of restoring it's probably my favourite memory because the amount of knowledge I've gained as a mechanic has been fantastic. I've been with Shannons now for, I think, at least 15 years. I have a few cars insured with Shannons and they've been great. I can't fault their level of service and expertise. Been my first car and I've kept it ever since. I'll probably die with it. It just has a lot of sentimental value. I love it.
Shannons National Auctions Manager Chris Borrabon joins us with some expert advice on the BMW New Six. Welcome, Chris.
John,
Welcome, mate.
Hello.
These cars really, very sophisticated for their time, weren't they? Beautiful four-coil suspension, you know, this single overhead cam, beautiful smooth six-cylinder, four-wheel disc brakes. I mean, wow, what a car. And then you look around the streets today and you say, where are they all gone?
That's it, yeah. I mean, when was the last time you saw a 3-litre S sedan on the road?
I haven't seen one.
It's very hard to come by, I think.
I mean, I know the total global production was pretty small anyway, so the allocation for Australia must have been small.
I'm wondering whether there are even very many surviving on the club scene.
Yeah.
Do you ever see them?
Not too many SLSIs.
2500, 2800?
2500s, barely none.
The 3.0 SI, that was the hot shot manual, the
Yes.
15.6 standing quarter, 4-speed manual, fuel injection, beautiful. You ever see one of those?
Look, we do, but not often. They do come up once in a while in the classifieds. I haven't had any at auction. We haven't put any through for years. We've put a few E9 coupes through. They've been, quite popular, and they, we've seen the market really climb on those in recent years.
Do you get much demand for them? I think, when you talk about the glamorous six-cylinder coupes, people start talking about 635 CSIs and things. It's like the New Six ranges are sort of a bit forgotten. Would that be fair?
No. Look, they're one of my favourite, the E9 shape, and I think we've really seen, that grow in the past few years. We've seen the prices, double and triple on the CSIs and CSLs.
They certainly have. I could have bought one of those cars very cheaply a few years ago, and they're not cheap now.
Not cheap anymore. No.
That's the coupes, but I was saying in the sedans. They're sort of, it's a bit oddball where they're sitting.
Yeah, it is. Look, they're actually an affordable car, very affordable car. I think, given where the coupes have gone to now in price, it makes the E3 sedan an affordable car, and it's a great car. I mean, you're getting the same performance of what you're getting out of a coupe, but you've got the practicality of 4 doors and taking the family or friends out in it, so it's great.
So what about if you wanted to get one of these cars in terms of spare parts backup, the problems that the cars have? Would it be difficult for a BMW of that age in Australia?
There are parts availability in Australia, but there's also really good support internationally. So there's some great support back in Germany, and also good part availability in the US as well for them.
Well, thanks very much indeed for joining us today.
Thanks, guys.
And remember, you can get all the latest auction results on the Shannons Club website. If you'd like your own race image of the BMW New Six, visit AutoPix, Australia's largest motorsport photo archive.
It's interesting reflecting on this car, because when you look at the way BMW came out of the 60s into the early 70s, they were really pushing this ultimate driving machine, marketing message. And that car really embodies a lot of that, doesn't it?
Well, the New Six more than any other, really, because they looked at Mercedes and they thought, that's a very good market, but there'll be Mercedes customers who'd really like a bit more focus on the sport,
sporting
not so
edge.
much on the luxury, the sporting, the ultimate driving machine. Something like what Jaguar tried to do in the 50s and 60s, if you like, and they really nailed that market. They really did get it absolutely right with the New Six.
And I think it'd be fair to say BMW owned it. They owned that market in the 70s and 80s, and it's like Mercedes-Benz toward
we want some of that. Yeah.
Hang on, you can't. We want some of that sporting edge, that sporting image, and they started to change their marketing message and their product, and they did it very successfully and took that ground away from them.
BMW did a fair bit to surrender it, I think, too, by going more mainstream.
Yeah, it was a big change, wasn't it?
It certainly was. We hope you've enjoyed reflecting on the sublime BMW New Six, and we'll catch you next time on Shannons Club TV.